My name is Luis Bravo. I'm from Montevideo, Uruguay, South America. I'm a poet, basically, but I do a lot of things too. I I became with the time. I became an essayist. I used to work a lot in critic, in journalism. I work in journalism, uh, print journalism, and radio too for many years. I'm a professor too. I teach in a private university and in the public education third level institution to teach future professors or future teachers. And for the last 10 years, I've been doing a lot of research. So I'm working right now in the main library of Montevideo as a researcher too. Being a writer or a poet is just a destiny. I don't think it's a job. I got it as a job because, as I tell you, I work in education and I work in journalism. But the thing that I like of this work I do as a poet and as a performer is that I had to construct myself in a society that has many poets like Uruguayan and a very good tradition, but I think it doesn't care much about them. So I work a lot to show our own society how important it is to have so many good poets uh, like our tradition has. That's why I research a lot about Uruguayan poetry. For the last 20 years, I've been working on that, and my last book came as a result of that. Uruguay is a melting pot. We used to say a cosmopolitan society, and we had in the first 20 years, 30 years of the 20th century, very developed conception of human rights, labor laws, and a very strong democratic system, politic system. That was the best thing to have a society with a very strong value in culture, politics, in thinking about how to, you know, how to get to a better society, and a very integrating society. That makes a difference with many other countries of South America. A strong middle class, that article the integration. That was until 60s. In the 60s, everything begin to change. And the last 40 years, I think we have a crisis, a very important crisis, but that structure we have, I think was very important to manage that crisis. The crisis goes through mentality too. And right now, I think we have, for the first time, we have two governments from the left party, Frente Amplio, and we came back to reinforce the distribution of the I don't know, enrichment, how you say it in English? Coming to Iowa City was a surprise, because I didn't know that you have here like a science fiction city. It's like a literary science fiction city. I call it Extranjia right now, because it's a small city where everybody is thinking about literature or art or film art or theater or different arts. Great place to write here. We don't have much time to do it, but it's a great place to write because it's, you have nature, all trees. I love trees. I love green. You have the river. You have quiet, enough silence to think. So I'm very thankful to be here. Yes, I read fiction because I have to teach, but I mainly read poetry and philosophy. That's what I like to read, or non-fiction. I prefer biographies and essays, articles, and poetry a lot. I like short stories too, better than novel. I think novel is in the last place of what I want to read. I think culture, not only literature or writers, needs a politic from the government, some intelligent support, but we don't need restrictions. We have different models, like socialists do or did, like American does, or South American countries that mostly don't support culture much. We have mistake. We separate too much education from art, from culture, and it's all the same tissue. We have a very close relationship with Argentina. We share many customs, you don't say customs, like our folklore, our habits. We are just the same. As a musician used to say me, you are the same but unplugged. Uruguay are the same that Argentina but unplugged, was a musician joke. The relationship with Brazil is different because the language, and you know, Brazil is a huge culture with many different cultures inside. Um, we don't have much contact as some of us would like to have, because some of us are really, we admire Brazil culture. Then we have the Mercosur. It was a regional market that supposed to integrate Paraguay, Brazil, Argentina, and Chile for the last 25 years, but it didn't develop as we expect. Then we have all the economy issue, mm, that you know, that's a different thing, because we depend a lot from our commercial bonds from Argentina and Brazil. When I was about 15, 16, I was a musician. That's my first vocation. Then I start to read poetry in those years, and discover a new world. Uh, in those times, I remember to read Shakespeare in one summer, and I think that was, you know, the main thing I have. I didn't understand Shakespeare when I was 16, you know, but I got into poetry from that point. And then I got very close from surrealistic uh, lines, from French surrealistic lines. But uh, we have this military dictatorship, so that changed a lot my orientation in poetry. So I started to read some sort of social poetry, because we need to know what was going on, and we need to fight for our, you know, rights or freedom. So I began to understand more that it's not only an aesthetic thing or a spiritual or mind thing, but it's also a social thing. So after that, I became a teacher, a professor in literature. So I I start to study a lot the avant-garde from Europe to South America, and the avant-garde from South America, like, you know, Vicente Guidoro, Oliverio Girondo. Those are parts that really make, you know, I don't know how to say, a landmark or whatever in my formation. For the last years, I just went through in the staging of the voice. What I'm saying, the staging of the voice, and I discovered that when I was young too. So, you know, just listen to Jim Morrison, or, you know, later like Laurie Anderson, or discovering how important was the Beat Generation. So what I do is a synthesis of many things just to get into my voice. So it's a bad synthesis, but it's like that. I think our students have to know more about our own tradition and the links of this tradition with Europe or with America or with other countries in South America. That thing is is the main thing here now, because I think we have to study more our own culture, literature, tradition, and from that, just to discover the links in the universal uh, literature. And the system now is old. It's like a French one. We go to the universal and never get to the local. I think Shakespeare is one of my important reference in my youth. But I think Fernando Pessoa, the Portuguese poet, has been a very important reference, because he's not only one poet, he's like five poets at the same time. So I found with Fernando Pessoa that the different styles I have, and I didn't know why I have so many different voices. Mm, I discovered that that could be possible with Fernando Pessoa. So he's master for me. And Vicente Huidobro is our Latin American first avant-garde poet. I think he's a great voice. I like how he opened the field to visual poetry, to sound poetry, and to poetry. Just, you know. So, as I work a lot in all these fields at the same time, the other thing of staging of the voice comes from American culture, and I, 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 I think Jim Morrison and the Doors, or uh, many other poets that you have in English, just on the music thing, like Leonard Cohen or Laurie Anderson. They are main reference for me. The origin of all my work is in the poem. The poem can come from a sound, also okay, but it's the poem. And I'm not a multimedia artist. I work with extraordinary multimedia artists that they come to my projects, or I invite them to work with me. So what I do is the staging of the voice, and I can do it just by myself with the voice, and then start with musicians. You know, I I am very fond of work with musicians, and I had the fortune to have many good friends. They are great musicians, so we work a lot together. And for the last 10 years, I've been doing a lot of research. So I'm working right now in the main library of Montevideo as a researcher too. being a writer or a poet is just print journalism and radio too for many years. I'm a professor too. I teach in a private university and in the public education third level institution to teach future professors or future teachers. My name is Luis Bravo. I'm from Montevideo, Uruguay, South America. I'm a poet, basically, but I do a lot of things too. I became with the time. I became an essayist. I used to work a lot in critic in journalism. I work in journalism. A destiny. I don't think it's a job. I got it as a job because, as I tell you, I work in education and I work in journalism. But the thing that I like of this work I do as a poet and as a performer